Then I would
You
just
know,
be so worried about him the entire
Yeah.
time.
it was my scuba diving guy that I was with in Mexico that taught me this means I'm peeing. Like they gave you like their little, because you got to when you
Jazz
scuba
hands.
dive, you got to learn all the hand signals. You
Uh-huh.
know, like
Mhm.
this is not okay. This means go up. This is okay.
Right,
This is
right.
up. This is go down. You know, there's all the different things that make it. And he's like going all serious through all these hand signals. Like, this means I'm peeing. Don't come close to me. I'm peeing.
I learned that in Mexico as well, except for I learned it in the fucking pool in Mexico for
I'm
Bob.
sure you did. We all know that man can't be bothered to get
Hey
out of the
friends, we got
pool.
people joining us here. I know you have a potential possible conflict, but if that conflict works out, did you look at the Airbnb that I sent?
Oh yeah, it looked great. Sorry, I thought that's what I meant when I replied saying like, but it was a very long reply because I had a lot of things I wanted to catch up with you about.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it seems delightful.
Yeah, Becky was super. Did Michelle show it to you?
No.
Of course. I deal with Michelle,
You
not
know
with
what?
Zach,
She
with things like
honestly,
this.
I think she asked me if I wanted to see it, and I said no. She's like, "Do you want to see this?" I was like,
Well, it's in the Berkshires. So we're for those of you on YouTube, we're talking about Josh Hallmark's podcast festival in the Berkshires, which you should all go to. There's a link on our
Is that how you
page.
pronounce it?
That's how he pronounces it.
Okay.
So
I don't know. I'm
What did he
fucking
say?
stupid.
Berkshires.
Yeah, Berkshires. That's how I've always heard it.
Yeah.
See, I don't know.
I think.
But I was like, we're out there, like, because I was looking at all the Airbnb, because all I was thinking was there's like the block of rooms, you know, you can get. But I was like, well, so there's 3 couples going at $250 a night. That's $750. I bet we can get a kick-ass Airbnb for less than that.
Mhm.
But they were all like cute houses, but they were like in town. And I was like, what if we're out there in the mountains in the Berkshires? And then I found that place. So it's like this. It's this huge plot of land. It's this big farmhouse, and it's an animal rescue. There's goats and animals, and they said that you can. That's what got Becky.
You know what? Michelle said
Love
something.
that.
Michelle said something about Becky liking the goats, and I didn't know what the hell she was talking about because I didn't see it.
Yeah, they have goats. I didn't catch that it was an animal rescue, but apparently there was, because
That's
both Michelle and Becky
extremely exciting.
pointed out that they were goats, and there's like views of the mountains and stuff out through the back. It looks beautiful.
Sorry, Joni. I gotta figure that out.
Can you just put them on like resale through like Ticketmaster or something?
Yeah, I just don't have time. I just haven't have time to. It turns out when you're gone for that amount of days and without a lot of internet, and then you get the flu, come back, and a family member dies. You got your work cut out for you. It has not been a soft landing since I got back. I'll put it that way.
So I'm just trying to catch up on the chat here, and Mikey just said, just checking in from the Bob's Shaving Tips fan club. Felt like I needed to check in. Update: using your electric razor in the garage is the new meta.
Did you shave in the garage? Is there something I don't know about?
I feel like this might be an old reference, like way old. When I was like, because Becky always yells at me for getting clippings when I trim my beard. Mikey, you'll have to update on that. Hang on, let me catch up here. Lots of ahoys.
Of course, because I'm back in studio.
Zach is right here.
Yeah. Damn straight.
Update. So somebody had mentioned something about a cat, which was from my Instagram post. I don't know if you saw, but the cat that adopted us and pooped out kittens twice in our garage.
Yeah.
That was like the most ferocious feral cat ever, that then has come to love us. And then we eventually got her spayed. Update: discovered the dog door and now lives in the house.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
So I'm concerned. So far, we're 3 days in. Things are going well. But like, she was, every once in a while, especially when it's cold, we'll like let her in for a little while and stuff. But she lives in the garage. She's an outside. She came from the woods. Like, she's an outside cat. And like, she had been in the house for a little bit, and like, she gets along. It's crazy. Like, the dog, like Mac is terrified of her, but she loves, like, she'll just go right up to him and rub her face on him and stuff. And both dogs are
scared
like,
then? Did she ever bat at him?
I'm guessing he got punched in the face by her at some point.
Yeah.
And
how it goes.
Yeah, and was a little, because he'll like sit there and shake while she's like rubbing her little head against his. They're adorable. But
cats
like,
and dogs like being affectionate with each other is.
She loves them. She loves,
or
the
just
dogs.
any two different species of animals being affectionate with each other is the best thing in the whole world.
Yeah, And Ruger's completely indifferent to her. Like he was laying on the floor the other day, and she like literally climbed on top of him, and he just laid there. Yeah. But
I'll be right over.
But so we put her out. She was in the house, and we put her out in the front in the garage where her food's at and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like 5 minutes later, she like jumped on the back of the couch behind me. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I was like, did you put the cat out? And she's like, I did. And I'm like, not yelling, but I'm like, you did not. She's clearly you didn't. She's going to poop and pee in that. Because we even considered, once we realized she got along with the dogs, it's like, we could bring her in, but she won't use a litter box. Like she just won't. When she
why doesn't she just go outside when she just go outside when she needs
we hadn't considered the dog door situation yet. So at this point, like we're like, we can't, because when the kittens were in the garage and they were big enough to like wander out, I like closed the garage up so they couldn't get out and get run over by a car. And I put litter box in there and I showed her how it worked and all that stuff. And she just shit all over the floor. Like she didn't care anything. So she won't use a litter box. So therefore she can't be in the house. Well, so then jump to, she's on the couch. I take her outside. I put her outside and pet her and give her some love. And okay, mama. I go sit down, and 5 minutes later, she hops up on the couch again. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And then we figured out somehow she must have been following the dog.
Sure.
She followed her right through the dog door, and now she lives in the house now. I don't know when but so far we're 3 days in, and we've been scouring the house, and we have not found any poop or pee. So I think she's going outside, because what I told Becky, and she better listen to me, said you leave her food in the garage, because then when she's hungry, she has to go out to go get food. So she's not going to just be like, I just live in here now. Fuck this. I'm not going anywhere. So she's been going in and out to get food, and she must be going to the bathroom outside, I guess. I hope.
I mean, cats are, I recognize that you just said she pooped all over the floor of the garage, but like typically cats are pretty tidy. Like they don't want to be around their own poo and pee.
Right.
That's, so if she has that outdoor option, most likely she's always going to take it.
I would
unless
think so,
she's angry or sick or something.
Yeah, but also like the house is big, so we have a finished basement too, and there's enough nooks and crannies.
Yeah.
Where like she could go find a little corner somewhere and poop, and then only go in there. Like
we get it. You live in a mansion, Bob. You couldn't
mansion.
possibly go through and check every nook and cranny in your beautiful mansion.
Yeah.
Have one of the servants do it.
My concern is in the very back corner of our basement is our gym. Like that seems like when Mac was a puppy, that's where he liked to go. He would sneak way back in there and go poop.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Like it's a fetish.
For you guys just joining on YouTube, I have streaming over here the school I work for. The boys basketball won state for the first time in school history Saturday, and the girls basketball is playing their quarterfinals game right now, and it is 23-20 with 20 seconds left in the third quarter.
Oh shoot! Okay.
Yeah, so it's a tight one. I don't think they thought it was going to be this close. So if I start screaming in the next 8 to 10 minutes during the fourth quarter, that's what's going on.
Great. Exciting.
Yeah, that'll be that exciting stuff is happening with the girls basketball. Carolyn says that cats are vindictive, and they certainly are. We had a cat that Becky had from years before we were dating. The cat was like 21 years old when we moved to this house. When she got old and she would get mad because we brought a new dog in the house, I still remember one time she jumped up on this like antique chair Becky had. She jumped on it, looked me squad in the eye while she pissed on that chair.
What's a squad in the eye?
She's just like, and it was 100% a fuck you.
What's a squad in the eye?
That means like right in the eye.
I've also never heard it. I've only heard square in the eye, but whatever.
I think it's a South Park reference. I think Cartman, instead of saying square, says right squad in the eye.
Never heard.
Gotcha.
Possibly.
Never heard.
Oh, all right. I guess we should start this show. Let me think of housekeeping. Do you have anything on there about Jamie Snow's ruling?
No.
Okay, then I'll do that in housekeeping. Okay, so we need to end the pregame. So pre-gamers, patron pre-gamers. By the way, if you guys just joined on YouTube, you missed out on a whole hour of conversation.
Did you see that?
Zach cried 3 times.
Did you see that Shiloh and Scott are starting their own pregame version?
Are they doing like we do?
Haven't they been doing?
They're calling it like shrink wrap or something.
Yeah.
That.
They just did their first one a week or so ago because I was like, what shrink wrap? Because I listen to them all the time.
That's awesome. Is it like ours where they just like do like a kind of like a pre-show chat before they start, or is it a whole different show?
I haven't listened to it yet.
I think it's just them bullshitting though. That's what it sounds like it's going to be.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm in. All right. Pre-gamers. Love you guys. Talk to you next week. All right. Ended that. I just had a panic attack and verified I did hit record on the video from the beginning.
All right. Great. Cool.
And hit record again. You hit record, JV?
I absolutely have now hit record. Yes.
1, 2, 3.
That felt good.
That's what she said.
I would hope so.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Truth and Justice. You are listening to the Friday follow-up for Bob's conversation with Bob Mata, the host of the Defense Diaries, and his take on the Delphi case. This was a great conversation. With Delphi being near and dear to my heart, I can't wait to discuss it. I'm Zach Weaver, and today I'm joined by Bob Ruff and Janet Varney, and we're here to discuss it all. But before we get into that, do we have any housekeeping?
Yeah. First of all, I want to give you guys a little heads up or update on the new case. Things are still moving forward there. I'm in a bit of a battle right now getting records. Trying to find I don't remember if I told you guys last week, but the police department claims that they have lost, and a previous chief had shredded all of the entire case file, which is a violation of evidence retention laws in Michigan. So that, and I informed them that I know exactly where they can get a copy, because they would have had to copy the entire case file to the DA. So go find it there. I'm working on filing records requests with the DA. I'm going to the clerk's office tomorrow to get the trial exhibits, to get some of that. I have talked to a few witnesses. Tomorrow I'm going to actually get we're doing case stuff. Like, I'm actually, it'll be for the podcast too, but I'm actually going to get an affidavit signed tomorrow afternoon. So we're moving forward. But it is because I don't want to like keep a carrot dangling in front of you and keep expectations. Just know, like, I kind of thought today, like, I need to just pull back and say, we're going to wait till we get this stuff and do it. We'll obviously continue doing episodes, probably do like we've done in other seasons. Between seasons, we'll do some interviews and continue putting content out every week. But I don't want to jump the gun on this until I have everything in hand ready to go. And once the season starts, you'll see why it's critically important that there are certain things that I accomplish before we start airing these episodes, and that stuff will come out. You'll realize why that is. But so just a lot of it is, I just want to let you guys know that we're not just sitting back on our haunches. We are working a lot. Robbie had just mailed me another bunch of case files. I just was able to scan in all of the trial transcripts this week, so I have digital versions of all those. Like, we are pushing the ball forward on that one. But as I mentioned, I've got beginning of April, I've got that first week we're not gonna have any episodes because it's my spring break. I'm gonna be out with the kids for the week. But so we're gonna start the season when we have everything ready to start the season. We're just going to continue doing, hopefully putting out meaningful content for you guys along the way. That being said, Rachel and Caroline, big shout out to them. I just got, literally right before we came on the air to record today, they just sent me the audio where they put in a ton of work going through cross-referencing everything that as far as the timeline goes with the Adnan case, from what Jay said in his first interview and what Jen said in her first interview. So you'll have all that together. So I'm going to put that out this week while I arrange other interviews. Some of you guys gave me some suggestions for other interviews. Keep those coming. If there's anybody you want to hear from, we're going to keep pushing things forward while we work in this other case. And this case is going to be bananas once we start launching into that. Also, as in the kind of the housekeeping realm, an update. You guys heard a few weeks ago, we had Jamie Snow had a hearing for DNA forensic testing, DNA and fingerprint testing to be done in his case. Everybody that was there, I know Jennifer Hill was there. Everything seemed to have gone very well at the hearing, and we just got the ruling back already, and the judge has denied the motion. And it's if you go on our fan page, they posted kind of what was written on there, what the judge's reasonings were for it. I think it's so frustrating. So part of the argument that they gave was with testing fingerprints was that because they have like fingerprints from the door in certain places in the gas station, that it's a gas station. There's people in and out all the time. So even if we identify a fingerprint, that's not going to tell us anything. I don't entirely disagree with that. That, you know, the fingerprints in and of themselves may not be enough to overturn the conviction, because they don't want to, you know, waste the time and resources, and as they would put it, the integrity of the conviction for something that wouldn't overturn the conviction. But they also, there was a motion to test DNA, including blood on the floor, DNA from like I believe the bullets, DNA from fingerprints that were found at the scene, a lot of things that were connected directly to the case. And it is such a bullshit argument. The argument that was made by the judge in the ruling was that there's no sign of a struggle, and therefore they don't believe that testing that DNA could produce any meaningful results, which is such a fucking cop out. It's so frustrating because nobody knows in there, right? So no signs of a struggle. There's a stool that was, if you guys remember season 7, a stool that was knocked over. There was certainly, you know, something happened. Bill was not found. Bill Little was not found like back behind the counter where he was supposed to be. He was out around the corner, which to me indicates there probably was some kind of a struggle.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure. But the thing is, if you find DNA of someone on his body, on something like a bullet that is absolutely connected to the case, there's no denying that. So to make the argument that there's some harm done by trying to find out if that stuff exists is complete BS. I think they should test the fingerprints too. You can't get hurt by having too much information. But, and so don't get me wrong, if you're like, I'm not saying I agree with the judge. I'm saying I can see that argument. You know, if you find fingerprints on the door of a gas station, what does that really tell you? But to say that we can't test the DNA on the body and around the body, that's blood at a murder scene, because you don't think there was a struggle there, is bullshit. I know that they are going to be appealing that ruling. So hopefully once we get it out of that courtroom and up to a higher court, hopefully it'll be over this. You know, it comes back to what we say this is in every case. Just test the fucking evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Just test it. Like the prosecution should never be fighting this hard to stop testing from being done.
Such a bad look.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. There's nothing. If you are so confident in your conviction, then test the evidence. Just like the West Memphis 3 case. You're so sure Damien Eccles was there, test the evidence.
Yeah.
Prove it. You know, so we will keep you. That's a really good point. Carolyn just said in the chat, judges shouldn't be acting as investigators, and that's absolutely true. I agree 100%. It's not the judge's job to determine if they think there was a struggle. Let's gather data, and then we can analyze the data and figure out what it means. So that's what's going on with that. I don't think we have any other housekeeping going on other than, like I said, I'm not sure. Next weekend will be an episode. The following weekend, I believe, is the spring break week. I'll have to look at a calendar, but just know that on Easter Sunday is the day I'm leaving to go with my family down on spring break vacation. So that week there won't be any episodes. And can you guys think of any other
not off top
housekeeping we have going on?
No, not off the top of my head.
All right, JB.
No, I just want to send my best to Jamie and, you know, all of the folks that have been working so hard on that. I know it's incredibly frustrating. Jennifer Hill has worked so hard, and these are the setbacks that just feel so exhausting and hard. But also, I see, Jennifer, you turning that exhaustion into fury, which I think is sometimes a really great fuel. So hang in there, everybody.
Yeah, and Jennifer also just pointed out too, and she had posted this on the fan page, that Jamie, of course, was pretty upset last week, and they talked, but she had mentioned in the chat here and also on Facebook that conversation did end up turning to a discussion on fainting goats. So,
girl, I will talk about fainting goats any day with you, Jamie, or anyone else. Fascinating and, may I say, hilarious.
Yeah, and also that's another good thing just to point out to any of you, that for all the people that are always like, I want to find a way to help. A lot of times being that friend to the people that are in prison is so much more help than you could ever imagine. It's worth more than money. It's worth more than anything. The fact that Jamie has Jennifer to talk to about fainting goats on a day we had such devastating news is great. And I know a lot of people had asked. I've had a crazy week, so I haven't had time to really think about it. But a lot of people asked if I can have Jamie come on and give his reaction to that. I probably can. We may do that, but I do want to verify with his attorneys, because I know that if I was a lawyer and you had this case in this court that just happened and you're upset with a judge's ruling and you have an appeal going, I don't think it would be the best idea to go out publicly and talk about it.
Yeah,
so
that
I
makes
just
sense. I get that.
Yeah, so I just want I want to talk to a lawyer and have that discussion before I put, because I don't, the last thing I want to do with any case is put the convicted person in jeopardy.
Absolutely,
because of something that I'm airing. So we'll check on that stuff. And Carolyn asked if Jamie can receive letters. He can, and you can even also email him. Well, maybe Jennifer could put a post on the fan page that explains how to do that, because we need to get going on this. So first of all, I know neither of you guys got to hear the interview that was happening. Zach is deeply into the Delphi case. I know, Janet, I know you super interested in the case and love Bob Mata. So who wants to go first? What do you guys think?
JV, go for it.
Oh, well, I thought it was great. I definitely have been every time. I haven't been going on live when he's doing them in the moment, just because it seems like I'm always doing something. So I often have to wait for the, either like a repeat or when it drops into his podcast feed is a guarantee that I will hear it. So there are some times that he's doing updates on Delphi that I don't hear until he drops them into the podcast feed, but I am super, super caught up on everything that he has ever dropped in there. And I really enjoyed the conversation. He's so passionate about it. And, I remember when the three of us were kind of digging into it like a year ago, when things were, there's always just something going on, it seems like, with that case.
Probably when that Frank's motion came out, is we really dove into it.
Yeah, which was a few months ago. Yep.
So yeah, it's just his perspective is fascinating, and he talks about it, in the interview with you, but he gets real fired up. He gets real fired up about, those sorts of like judge misconduct or prosecutorial misconduct, and he's a watchdog. He's a real watchdog. So I thought it was fascinating. Zach, what did you think?
I really appreciated his perspective. The one thing that I did notice listening, I don't listen to Bob a lot. I've listened to maybe one or two of his podcasts. I don't listen to him a lot. The one thing I noticed about this particular interview and his perspective, and he's very forthright about it, is he says he's on the defensive side. Everything he says, he's on the defensive side. He's very forthright about that. And one of the things I noticed in this is he continued to humanize Richard Allen, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but everybody in the world knows him as Richard Allen.
Yeah.
The entire interview, he called him Rick.
I didn't even notice that.
The entire interview, he calls him Rick Allen.
Mhm.
Rick Allen. Rick Allen. Where he's trying to use this, the defense side, right? To touch your personal being of being like, this is a person.
Right.
This is not Richard. This is a nickname. This is a shortened name, like your name's Robert. We call you Bob.
Mhm.
My name's Zachary. We call me Zach. Like, it's that personal side that he's trying to kind of touch while he's doing this. So that's something I really caught on to quickly.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, like you talk about statement analysis. I don't know how the hell to do that, but I caught that very quickly
you did, yeah.
in his discussion about him doing that, trying to humanize Richard Allen in this instance, because he is on the defensive side.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Mischief, I just want to respond. You are pointing out that it's alleged misconduct. I was making a general statement about Bob and his attitude across the board when he's just talking about stuff. I'm not saying that happened. I recognize that it's alleged, but I wasn't speaking specifically about that case. I was saying Bob Mata gets very fired up about any form of misconduct, alleged or otherwise, from the state.
Yeah.
So,
I really enjoyed the perspectives outside of like case specific stuff, but about, how Bob really got into how he views the defense's job and how he tries to, like he said, I like how he put that, he's on the defense side. From what he's seen, he doesn't see a strong case there.
Mhm.
And he thinks this is an innocent person, but also that he's not willing to make that judgment until,
and I greatly appreciate
the
that.
evidence comes out. But it is good. And I think I said this in the episode, it's a good reminder. I thought back to, remember when he was first arrested, and I think Janet, I don't know why I remember this moment, but you thought for a minute and you were like, what's his name? Oh, it doesn't matter what his name is. And then you caught yourself and came back and said, wait a minute, I said that, and that's not fair because he hasn't been convicted of anything, and we should learn our lesson, and we shouldn't already decide that this guy's guilty. So I think it's a good reminder to step back into that. And I know there's other podcasts that have covered the murder sheets. Like I know from a little bit from the chat here and from the chat when Bob was on, that Mischief certainly does not agree with most of what Bob said, or some of what Bob said about the case and about the the alleged misconduct. When I heard him, and there was some of that chat was going on during the episode when he was talking about like the leaked documents and stuff like that. I mean, unless I didn't hear something that he said, like I never heard him say that the prosecutor leaked it or anything like that. What I heard him say was, when I think about who would benefit from that, and certainly the prosecutor would benefit from that, is what he said. I don't have whether that's what happened or not. I don't think I heard Bob say, so that's what happened. I think that's just the way he's looking at it, which I can appreciate, because that's how I do data analysis. Is like, well, what is it telling me? What, whose benefits, follow the money, all these different things. Like, how does this look to me? But I just do want to acknowledge, so you don't feel like you're talking into an abyss, Mischief, that yeah, I recognize that you feel quite passionate about the case, and maybe don't so much align with what Bob said.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I could not be more aware of how little I feel like we actually know. And I think, I thought you guys were pretty good about just continuing to say, like, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know. We have no idea if he's deeply involved, if Richard Allen is deeply involved. But that, I think, you just see Bob just being very excited when he feels like he's seeing lawyers fight as hard as they possibly can, and that his perspective of that and his interpretation of that is that he feels that these lawyers really believe that their client is innocent. Again, that's all perspective. That's all subjective stuff.
Yeah.
But I absolutely don't know. That's why there should be a trial.
Yeah.
Well,
Because I don't know what the evidence, none of us really know what the evidence is. Not truly at all.
I felt he had a great perspective on it. He was really able to, when that PCA came out and we finally got our hands on the PCA ourselves, and we read it, and we were kind of like, well, this doesn't seem like a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I hope they just put enough on here to arrest him, and I hope they have more.
Yeah. Well, he made a really good characterization, because I've actually also read the PCA for the Idaho murders, and he had referenced that the difference between, and it is staggering. And I remember when we first got the PCA for this case, I remember first reading it, like, that's a lot. Like, he was there, he admits he was there. They got that, but I remember right at the beginning, I'm like, wait a minute, an unspent shell casing that they have somehow, like, that's not like even striation patterns is almost bordering on debunked. An unspent casing, like, that seems pretty weak. And I think Bob put it in pretty good perspective. Like, when they say he admits to being there, well, what, admits has kind of a negative connotation to it. He didn't admit, he acknowledged that, he came forward on his own. And I have no idea if this guy is guilty or not. To me, I mean, at one side that seems very weak. On the other side of it is, like, they have video of the guy supposedly that is the one that, like, took him down the hill and did this, wearing that blue jacket on that bridge, and this guy says he was there wearing a blue jacket on that bridge at that time. Like, I'll be curious to see a trial when they get around it. And Zach and I, so the trial is actually going to be happening like less than 2 hours from my house. So I'm hoping that when it happens, that I can, if it happens in the summertime after school's out, which I think it won't, because I think they said it's going to be May 13th is when it's going to happen, if there's no more delays. But I'm hoping to get down there for at least some of it.
I would really like to go as well. And you talked about that spent shell case. Go ahead, Janet. Sorry.
No, stay on that subject, because I was going to ask something.
That spent shell casing, while I do fully agree that that would be torn apart in trial. There's no way that holds up. It's chunk science. Yeah. I do believe that there's enough you could probably pull off of a gun based on that, because of the way it cycles, because of the ejector, from everything that I know about firearms and all my expertise with firearms, I think there's enough you could pull
I would
from
think
that.
though there would have to be a flaw in it in order to do anything more than saying that that is an ejector from a Glock model, whatever.
You're right. You're 100%
Yeah.
right. But that's what I'm saying though is if there is something there's all these little things that happen in the barrel that don't have to be fired to scratch the shell casing.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, and I still believe that it's probably junk science.
Yeah.
But I think there is more to that than what's let on. I think there's more to it than people just throwing it away as complete garbage.
Yeah.
I guess my opinion.
Well, and of course, most people listening to this all come from the kind of a defense-minded perspective, which is like, you got to prove this to me. And to me, like I said, and I could be wrong about that, but I could see them saying this came clearly from an ejector on a Glock 40.
Mm-hmm.
For them to say it came out of that Glock 40, I would be real curious how they're able to do that. And that's the part that I'll think. And if the evidence is that it came out of this model of gun, then maybe that's all it is. We'll see when it gets to trial.
And I could be 100% wrong on this. That's my feeling on it.
Yep. So the question I wanted to quickly ask is, you just mentioned it, Bob, when we're talking about the guy in the video, and what he was wearing, and that Richard Allen seems to have been, admittedly wearing something very similar. In fact, kept all of those clothes. Are we? And I say this because I feel like there's been so much weird intrigue around how all of that information was kept from the public or released to the public. And you obviously talked about it a lot with Bob, like the police sketches and all of that, and just the confusion around that. Are we certain, at least from the perspective of what the police have confirmed, that the person in the video is the person who led them down the hill? Like, has that connection been solidified? Not just like, I've taken a video of someone and it might not be the same person.
My understanding is that the audio we hear of guys down the hill is all part of that video.
Okay.
So my understanding, and I've some of this has been, and I don't remember what came from what, but I've had some off-record sources that have talked about it too. My understanding is that there's actually a lot more audio, but that they obviously didn't want shared with anybody. And so what it sounds like from what I've been told, I don't have personal knowledge of this. What that was her starting the video and started to video the guy, and as he got closer to them, she put her phone in the pocket, so it was still recording video, but it's just black because it's in the pocket.
Right.
But all the audio's there, so there's like it seems like there's a seamless connection between that guy walking up to them and all the way down to the murders.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, again, it was just so obscure when they first started releasing information. I sometimes have trouble remembering like what they confirmed, what they changed, what they never revealed.
Yeah,
all of that.
We just got to be careful because we want to go to the trial because again, like as I think through it again, because a lot of people in the chat are like, yeah, every guy in Indiana wears that outfit. It's just we also have to remember that most wrongful convictions come from a weird coincidence. So we have to remember that. But it's like, that these witnesses that see him, he acknowledges being there, seeing those people, he acknowledges being on the bridge, and then there's in this video one sole guy wearing that outfit on the bridge. It's like I'm going to be very curious to see how the defense gets over that at trial, but also in the trial, like someone in the chat was saying that they have a real problem with the defense filing motions like the Frank's motion and things like that to try to circumvent the gag order. The thing is, they're never like this is not in my opinion, constitutionally, this is like this gag order is not okay. It's not okay for the prosecution to put out whatever tidbits of the crime they want to the public to sway people to their side, and then try to seal up and not let anybody else know anything else that could come, that could maybe sway them to the other side. So personally, I don't have a problem with them doing that because I never thought it was right to begin with. Like the public, literally, per our Constitution, has a right to know what's going on. And if there's a gag order, there's a gag order. You don't get to pick one side gets to share what they want, and the other side doesn't get to share anything on their side. And then also from what people are calling the Franks memo, some people call it a complete BS motion that was intended to muddy things up. I those things that are in there, like I guess I don't understand what people want. Like, if all that stuff's true, if this guy had said that he was there and spit on the body, and if there were these connections to the Odinism, all that stuff, like, why is that? Like, I don't understand why somebody would think that that's not fair to make a ruling on that. If it's the whole concept of fruit of the poisonous tree. If they got the search warrant by omitting and lying about evidence, and it's their job and duty to file those motions with the evidence that they have, which seems like, and maybe it's all bullshit. I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, to that end, it's very hard to understand or imagine why, with an incredibly high-profile case that is steeped in so many strong emotions for very good reason, that you wouldn't investigate those things. Like, to give the cops the benefit of the doubt, what purpose does it serve to shove anything under the rug when so many eyes all over the world are have already been on the case, are gonna continue to be on the case? Like, I don't know what the reason is why you wouldn't do your due diligence and follow up on things like that. So, I mean, again, this is why people end up being falsely convicted, but I'm just kind of baffled by, like, maybe they'll just be able to show that they actually really did follow it up and it just was meaningless or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. And also, like, you got to keep in mind, and we need to get into these questions. We're rambling on for 25 minutes, but um, the investigation into the whole Odinism angle and all that stuff. Keep in mind that was cops doing that. Cops on the case that were doing that. That information came from the detectives that were working on that angle that thought that it had legs. So, and Bob pointed that out too. So again, not to say it's all true, and I'm not trying, because I don't know, but to say that it shouldn't be done when you have, like I said, detectives on the case who it came to light to the defense, from my understanding, because those detectives were like, what the fuck?
Right.
Like, we have all this evidence, and then you just went and are ignoring all of it. And then, so anyway, we'll see how things shake out. I certainly don't want to, I can't speak intelligently enough to sit there and try to argue with anybody about it, but I'm even more open-minded now after talking to Bob, almost because of him reminding me of the fact that this is an innocent guy until proven guilty, and we need to wait to trial to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And I certainly am not saying that I believe that a person is innocent or guilty based on Bob Motta's coverage. And my memory of your conversation was that he was like, please, God, don't have an opinion about this. No one should.
Right. Yeah.
I think the hardest thing for me is knowing this is hard to say, but is knowing that I'm biased on this case, and knowing that I want nothing more than for this case to be solved. And and in my head, I want it to be solved properly. I want it to be done. I want truth to be served for Libby and Abby. And so bad that it's hard to not want this to be right.
Yeah,
Agreed.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
If we're talking about, like, in my heart of hearts, I hope Richard Allen is guilty. I hope they prove he's guilty, and that's the end of it. Like, that's just that's human me, not not investigator me or anything. Because I want justice to be served. I want this to be over with. I want it to be done. I just haven't seen anything yet that has me completely convinced. And it's a hot topic. Like I said, there's some of the chat going on. Like, when I mentioned the detective, they said there was only one detective. Still, that's one detective. That's a detective that works for the department. That's their job. They have more knowledge than you. They have more knowledge than me. They have more knowledge than Bob. They have more knowledge than the murder sheets. They're literally working in the case as a detective on this case, and thought that there were legs there. So it's certainly at least worth noting. I think.
And I think that by putting out that Frank's motion, I think the defense, easily put out that there's reasonable doubt, or there can be reasonable doubt based against Richard Allen. So
well, and this is the last thing I'll say before we get into the questions. But the other thing that I said in the episode that frustrates me, like, if there was shady stuff being done, I'm not saying there was, but if there were things hidden, if there were things forgotten about, if there's anything shady done and that causes him to get acquitted, and he is actually guilty, that's exactly why we have to police and be watchdogs, and why defense attorneys exist, and why us, the public, who do what we do, exist, is to hold people accountable. Because cheating and not doing your job right can just as easily wrongfully convict the wrong person, or let the right person off the hook because you tried to cut corners. So I just hope that's not the case here. With that, let's get into these questions, or I'll just keep going about this.
That was such a good spot for an ad break.
Yeah.
Shannon says, are there any repercussions possible if Alan is acquitted? His life in Delphi is kind of over. I'm so frustrated that after 5 years of investigation, this case is turning into such a cluster. The poor families of those two sweet kids.
I don't think so. Generally not. As long as the prosecution can show that they had just cause and probable cause to bring the charges and take them to trial. That's how our system works. I mean, sometimes, investigators believe they got the right guy. That's why we have trials. If you go to trial and prove that you're innocent, then that's the end. That's the end of it. So, no, I don't think there's any repercussions for that.
Yeah. Sorry, a lot of these are comments. So they're great comments, but I'm trying to filter through and get some questions for a moment. Gosh, this is mostly statements. Hang on. How is the judge still presiding over this case after showing what is, in my opinion, clear favoritism to the prosecution and having her decision to remove Alan's attorneys against his will overruled? Sorry for this.
I don't know. That's a lawyer question, and to Mischief's point in the chat, that was, as far as the bias that's being shown by the judge towards the prosecution as opposed to the defense. That's Bob's opinion, right? So I'm sure there's plenty of other people that would disagree with that. So I definitely do not know that's the case. I know there was a hearing yesterday, and I meant to catch Bob's coverage of that. To hear what went on yesterday. I haven't heard anything about that yet. But I believe it was along those lines as far as if the defense. Do you know, Zach, if the defense was able to stay on the case?
I don't know. I missed it.
Yeah, the whole thing was just weird. It was definitely very strange. The leak, and then they had to remove themselves from the case. Richard Allen didn't want them removed from the case. There's a lot going on there, but I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following the rulings, and I mean, his original lawyers have been restored to him. Now he, I guess, technically has 4 lawyers, although it's possible that all of that could have changed just in the time.
And yesterday they did drop the 2 kidnapping charges. I do know that.
They dropped the kidnapping charges, but still the murder charges exist, right?
God, I would imagine so. Someone says that he's doing another live tonight. Jennifer said that he's doing another live tonight. That's not, I guess, something that will end up in this recording. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sue says, was there evidence that one of the girls was dating or corresponding with someone online in reference to them collecting a bunch of old phones and early conversations that were being shared with the public about people being looked into specifically through correspondence that they might have had online and catfishing and stuff like that?
Are they asking if there's evidence in Richard Allen's
in this
phones,
case,
or
no,
of other people?
Just any evidence at all that we have been made aware of that the girls were even corresponding with someone online?
Yeah, there was the Anthony Shots account. Wasn't that one?
Yes.
I believe for sure that that account, the guy running that account, was corresponding with one of the girls that day through, I don't think it was Snapchat or something.
Yeah, that's where that Keegan Anthony Klein stuff comes from. Is that he was the one that was believed to be in charge of that account. That's how they arrested him. That's where this whole Delphi connection came to, was because he had been in connection with them or in contact with them that day.
Right.
So, but I think everything that we've moved on from to that point had nothing to do with the murders. It was just happenstance.
Do you know if anything ever became of that? Because there was the longest time we all thought this must be the guy, because he was arrested like on other charges. And
don't you dare lump me in with that. I never thought that was the guy.
Yeah. Well, some people thought that was the guy because of the fact that, he was arrested. I think it wasn't for other charges. He was arrested. Right. And then they,
in July, he was sentenced to 40 years for child exploitation.
Yeah. And that's what it was. So there was the child exploitation stuff going on, but then also we knew that he was communicating with the girls on that day. We didn't have a whole lot of information about it, so it seemed like to me it seemed like a promising lead. And then next thing we know, Richard Allen's arrested, and that's the last we hear about him.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that from that day forward.
Yep. For you to ask us the next one, somebody just asked in the chat before I lose it. Ava wants to know what I make of Richard Allen supposedly making claims of his guilt on many occasions. I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard of it. So kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as who gets to do what, like we're talking about the defense finding ways to get information out to the public on a sealed case, but then the prosecution makes sure they slide into the unredacted in their motion that he had made supposedly confessions over the phone, I think to his wife or something while he was in jail. I don't know. Again, like all of that on both sides. I want to wait till trial and hear hear what that's about. I think that the defense kind of claimed there was, that was due to the circumstances in jail. I don't know. I haven't heard them. I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, this case is very dense. There's a lot to it. I don't think anyone is arguing that, no matter what they think is happening from the defense or a prosecution perspective. Kathy says the assertion that the prosecution lost over 70 hours of recordings of witnesses blows my mind. I'm so sorry. This is referring to something that is not part of the conversation that you two had. So do you know what I'm referencing?
Well, I mean, the prosecution lost a lot.
I don't remember, Bob. I don't remember you guys talking about this.
I don't think we talked about it on the podcast, but that was kind of part of so that was the whole thing with Richard Allen, right? They interviewed him like the day after. And this is according to Bob. I have not verified this in the case file for my own eyes, but according to Bob, and Zach may know better than me, that, his interview was they asked for anybody that had been there that day to come forward and talk to them. And he voluntarily came in and talked to them. But that was, if you remember when he was first arrested, when I was so frustrated by the fact, it's like, wait a minute. So you interviewed a guy that was wearing those clothes that people said they saw on the, like all those statements came from way back.
Right.
And then you just forgot and missed it. And it wasn't caught until 5 years later. Somebody caught that this happened. But then I do recall somewhere. Do you remember that, Zach? I don't remember if it was in the conversation with Bob or not, but at some point it came out that there was, maybe it was even in that Frank's memo that there was, that they had asked for, and part of the file, and the prosecution said they had lost like 70 hours of recordings of witness interviews.
I don't think it was in your interview. So I think that must have came out at another point, because I don't think you guys ever talked about that.
Yeah, it might have been in that. It might have been in that Frank's motion. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I do recall hearing, because I remember being like, "What?" It's one of the, again, admittedly, I look at most cases from the defense side, from the wrongful conviction side, and so when I see that, it's like, here's what appears to be on the surface at least kind of a weak case against this guy, and then we have this detective that's like, we were working this angle and thought we had these other people, and they arrested him. And then the defense is like, well, let's see the case. Oh, we lost all the other interviews. That it's something. It's if that's the case, it's incompetence at best. Hopefully not worse than that.
That's all I have.
That's perfect. Well, it's good that I rambled that long then.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I don't want to encourage that behavior on a regular basis. So that's why I'm reluctant to agree and wrap it up.
Well, I truth be told, I did see in the list that we had mostly statements of people saying how much they enjoyed it, and less questions. And just to give you guys a heads up, you're going to hear this on Friday, and by then you'll be seeing that my school had now won the semifinals, I'm sure. But my high school girls basketball just won their state quarterfinals game, 43-34. They're heading to the semifinals. They're heading to the Breslin and Michigan State. So good on them.
Congratulations to them.
Yep. And with that, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for being in the chat. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
All right, we can stop on our audio.
Yeah, Kathy, sorry. That's why I stopped midway through bringing it up, because I just suddenly was like, I don't think we are as informed as you are about exactly what that question and comment was. So I didn't want us to like try to give an answer to something we weren't sure about.
So I mean, I was just trying to read about it really quick, and it sounds like that the 70 hours that was lost was interviews with some of these other people, some of these other guys that they think maybe
that's what I thought. It was part of the Franks memo, right?
Yeah,
because that's what it was when they wanted to get all the information about that investigation. I was
trying to read it, but I couldn't read it quick enough before we got off the air. So my bad.
Well, at least the YouTube people get it and the patrons get it. But yeah, it was something like that, because all I remember when she brought that up, it like triggered. I remember reading them like, oh, this stinks. Something stinks here. That first they don't give them, if from my understanding, they didn't give them the information about this whole investigation into the Odinism folks. Then this detective brings it to them, brings it to their attention. Then they're like, well, we want to, and they're like, oh, well, we don't have the tapes anymore. You know, it just, maybe it's all mistakes. It could be all mistakes, but it's for a wrongful conviction person. It's like, I don't like the way that smells.
It was all suspects for all cases during that time frame. It wasn't just this one specific case.
And if that's the case, it's probably obviously just mistake. You know, a super unfortunate one, because, and again, that's one of those things. You know, that if that's the case, that's incompetence. It's not corruption, but that's one of those things. Like, that could be the thing that gets a guilty person acquitted. That's what drives me crazy. This whole investigation has drove me nuts, because, you know, and again, this is maybe my personal bias, I admit that, but the fact that they kept they refuse to engage the public for help drives me insane.
Yeah.
You know, like there were certainly, you could keep elements, you could keep some aces in the hole that only the killer would know, to preserve that evidence in case when you find somebody, and still give enough information out for people that people could help, you know. And it's and the whole thing is like, we're the professionals, we got this, we're doing this, and it comes out, it's like, you didn't got it, you mucked the whole thing up. You taped over interviews, you didn't you had a whole nother angle being worked that you didn't tell anybody about.
Well, and I'm trying, I mean, like you said, I mean, I'm trying my best to look at this objectively, and you know, Richard Allen is innocent until proven guilty, which he truly is. But there's so many things that, like, just in my personal sphere, that just fuck with me, you know, like the whole Odinist side. You know, my very first instinct is like, fuck, bullshit, like, we've seen this. But maybe it is, that's the problem, you know what I mean? Like, we saw the satanic panic in a case that's I'm very close to. So as soon as they bring up the Odinist shit, that's where I'm like, oh, fuck you, that's bullshit. Right. But then I try to look outside myself, and
well, in that regard, it's, I probably should have just kept recording. It was too late now.
Sorry.
You YouTubers get extra. But like in that regard, like, as I said with Bob, like, the way I've looked at it is like, if that's the case, I think it would be more somebody mimicking that, trying to make it look like that, than an actual ritualistic sacrifice. And also there's a distinct difference between what happened with the West Memphis 3 and what happened here. If, again, we haven't seen the crime scene photos, we don't know, but in the West Memphis 3, they had what is very clearly proven now post-mortem injuries from animal predation that they mistook for indications of a ritualistic killing. In this case, from what the defense says, and that's just what the defense says, there was no mistaking it. Like they were, you know, that they were putting what do they call them, runes, whatever, you know, using sticks to look like antlers and putting symbols on the bodies, and, you know, stuff like that. Like that wasn't animal predation, you know. But then I've also heard on the, you know, people arguing for the prosecution, like, it could just be sticks falling, you know, it could have been nothing, but it was enough that the FBI, the expert, that, again, another thing, they talked to that expert, that then they just, oh, we don't know we can't remember who it was. Like, you can't tell me, like, you can't bullshit like that, because it's gonna, but, and again, maybe he's guilty and this is gonna end up biting him in the fucking ass, because they're trying to hide something. You don't get to hide things in the American criminal justice system. You're not supposed to. But while people will say, it could have been sticks falling from trees, this and that, the experts that the state employed to investigate this all concluded, from my understanding, that this was either ritualistic or the mimicking of ritualism.
Well, and that's why I said what I said is I don't know, but that was my gut response when I heard it.
Me too,
because of what we've already experienced.
Well, it wasn't my first one was holy shit. Then it was like, calm down, this sounds bananas.
Yeah,
so this is probably bullshit. And then it came back around like, but that's some of my kids at school asked me the other day, like, what do I really do for a living in my other job? And I was like, and I had to think about it for a minute. And I was like, really, when it comes down to it, the way I see my job is I'm a data analyst more than anything. Right. That's what I mostly do, is gather data and then analyze it and try to figure out what it all means. And so I tried to in this case, try to step back into that space and be like, okay, well, what data do we have? The defense says in the pictures this happens. The state's expert in the pictures says the same thing. So very likely that was the case. And if that was the case, then maybe this isn't crazy to think that it's a possibility. Jennifer, thank you so much for the super chat. She says, Bob, you made a good point about checking with Jamie's lawyers first about interviewing him. Thank you for sharing the news about his case. You are very welcome. Oh, I'm fired. I get so fired up. I can't stop. Just rambled for another 10 minutes after the podcast was over.
Yeah, we probably should have left some of that in there. My bad. I should have brought that up earlier.
No, that's all right. It was probably more of the same. We'll see if the people that were excited to hear about it then go watch it on YouTube. I'll make this one public on Friday so everybody can see it. Just tell them, go back and check the end of the YouTube. All right. Are we ready to... Oh, another good point, by the way. Cindy says in the very original press conference by police, they mentioned, remember we kept hearing about there's a distinct signature on the scene. So even the original police investigating didn't think these were just sticks that fell somewhere.
Very interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, yeah, I guess.
If
that's what they were talking about.
I definitely want to try to make it down to at least a day.
Yeah, I was kind of excited when I saw that they like set that 70-day ruling in, or motion in, so that they were going to start on May 13th. And then I was like, but man, if they would just start a month later, I'd be summertime and I could just sneak down there and watch the whole trial. We'll get down there for some of it.
Poor Teach.
Oh, JV, you ready to go eat dinner, relax, feel better?
Yeah, we gotta go back to different work.
When we go off YouTube, I want to say something.
Okay.
It can be on Patreon, but probably shouldn't be on YouTube.
Okay. Real quick though, I do want to say, so Mischief said it's not going to go in May. Was there another ruling from it? Mischief? I'll just wait just a second to see if she can answer that, because that was because I did look up when Bob mentioned that later that they would put that in, and that's as far as I know, unless I'm missing something, that 70-day ruling for speedy trial is kind of a hard and fast rule, and the judge had approved it. I think the judge set the trial for May 13th, so maybe something changed yesterday. It was like May 13th through 31st. Wait just a second. See how fast Mischief can type. Plus, there's a delay.
Oh, good point. The delay.
Just talk for a second. No, just the defense keeps filing motions that clogged up the court hearings. It's hyperbole. Well, we'll see. Unless they ask for, my understanding of the law on that, on the 70-day rule, is that unless the defense asks for a continuance and it's agreed on both sides, that it's set in stone. So we'll see what happens there. All right. So we're going to end the stream. So thank you guys for joining us on YouTube. We appreciate all you guys. We'll see you next week.
I have no shoes on.
Oh, that's nice. Bye, YouTube.
Me neither. Bye.